Joining me now are Laura Jarrett, NBC's senior legal correspondent, and Kyle Cheney, senior legal affairs reporter for Politico. It's great to see you both tonight as we try and understand exactly what is happening in what appears to be a mystery wrapped in enigma, wrapped in something that's under seal.
Well, some of the things are pretty clear.
Yeah, well, but okay, first, Laura, I would love your perspective on the unusual timing yesterday, ordering one side to respond by midnight, special counsel has to respond by 6 a.m.
I've never seen that.
How did you interpret that?
That the stakes are very high and that there is something in those materials that the judge, assuming that she reviewed the materials in private, which is called in camera, before she actually ordered them to be turned over. NBC is not yet reporting that, but that's typically how it goes. The judge reviews them and then says, hey, you have to turn them over. Something in those she decided was so high stakes and so important that it needed to be turned over expeditiously. And then the D.C. Court of Appeals agreed with her.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we haven't been able to see what's in those materials. The entire case is under seal, so we don't know what that is. But whatever it is, obviously, Jack Smith cares a lot about it as well, because he went to the trouble of trying to get these materials so that the grand jury can see them. The grand jury that is reviewing this and preparing, to possibly indict.
Do you draw any conclusions about the time frame on all of this, given the rapidity with which or the alacrity with which they seem to be moving through some of what would seem to be end stages of this investigation?
I think that it is fair to say you do not go after the former president's attorney until you are really at sort of a critical juncture. It's certainly not the move you would make as your first entry into the case. You would really do it once you've developed enough facts and evidence to feel like this is really something we need. In fact, you'd have to make that showing to the judge that this is really critical evidence. That's not to say that they are anywhere near close to an indictment. They may not be nearly far as along as perhaps the DA in Manhattan, for instance. But I think it is fair to say that you would do this at an advanced stage in the investigation.
Kyle, I want to ask you, what is your estimation about what else we might expect in terms of witnesses that could be called, in terms of the work that remains on this case, which to the layman seems pretty exhaustive at this point?
Right. Well, and I think just to even put it in a broader perspective, you have what's happening in Manhattan, you have the documents case, and then you have Fulton County, where Trump is being investigated for attempting to overturn the election in Georgia. All three of those could be imminent. It's not even just the two we've talked about, but this third one in Fulton County where indictment could come any day. The DA in Fulton said it's imminent. The charging decisions are imminent there. So it's really remarkable when you think about, and I think it's absolutely right, when you are going to pierce attorney-client privilege especially on a crime fraud theory, you are pretty much at the end game. Judges don't like to do that. And ever in any circumstances. And so when you have the chief judge at the time agreeing that that's appropriate and the appeals court agreeing with her, it seems like the evidence must be pretty compelling and overwhelming. And so now the question is, will Corcoran show on Friday? Will there be some effort to send this to the Supreme Court, which we haven't seen any signals of yet? So and there's some reporting, I think, that Trump is not interested in going to the Supreme Court. So this may be that he shows up and he gives them the goods that he has, and an indictment could be fairly forthcoming right after that.
What's your assessment of that, Laura? Because, while the judge ruled that, yes, the evidence Corcoran has to testify, the evidence has to go, the prosecutors can look at the evidence that we're talking about, and we'll get to that in a second, but the appeals process continues, right? Kyle's saying that Trump reportedly doesn't want this to go to the Supreme Court, given how they've handled previously sort of similar things. I mean, what's your estimation about the fight ahead and how much this could be litigated further?
Well, keeping the appeal open can be risky for Smith. If in the event that later down the line a court decides actually these documents should not have come into evidence, should not have gone before a jury, and the whole thing gets thrown out, that could be particularly problematic for him. So even if he is allowed and his team are allowed to review these materials, they may not ultimately use them in whatever decision they make about whether or not to go forward, if they were to go forward with an indictment.
Well, and let's just talk about the materials, right? We're talking about notes from personal audio recordings.
We don't know what that is, but yeah.
We don't know what that is, but the judge who's examined this material is referring to it as Trump's alleged criminal scheme. I mean, she's putting the word Trump and criminal scheme together after the review of these materials, which may include notes from personal audio recordings.
Well, and what's so weird is usually when you see the crime fraud exception invoked, it's in a case where the lawyer is in some sort of cahoots with the client. In this case, what at least it appears to be is that she, the judge, has suggested that Trump actually misled his own attorneys in some way. Again, the contours of that we're going to have to report out. But as you said in your setup here, we know that part of the reason Corcoran is so interesting is he drafts what turns out to be a highly misleading statement that the Justice Department receives and relies on. Was that done at his client's suggestion? And if so, how did all of that come together? Those are the kinds of questions Smith is going to try to be drilling down on.
The statement is this sort of centerpiece of the obstruction case, right? This notion that the Trump legal team says, you know what, guys? You got everything. Yeah. Now, what we know about that statement is Evan Corcoran drafts it, but Christina Bobb, a different lawyer, signs it. And Kyle, I wonder if you're interested in the sort of choreography of the signing of that statement, because it suggests, I think their inference is going to be drawn about who knew what in terms of the legality of that statement.
Right. And that's why, one of the questions I've got is Evan Corcoran coming forward willingly? Is he someone who says, I want to tell you what I know, to clear my own name and maybe to clear the people who worked with me, and then Trump is intervening to block him, because the sequence of events here suggests that it was Trump who intervened to stop Corcoran from coming forward and to stop him from talking. Now, again, I don't know, because this is all happening in secret, because it's all under seal, we learn bits and pieces here and there. And so it's hard to always judge, what are the motivations here. But one of the theories, at least behind why the appeals court moved with such urgency, is because perhaps Corcoran was ready to come say what he knew. And if they didn't step in to sort of adjudicate this, it might have been too late. We saw a very similar situation play out last fall when Mark Short and Greg Jacobs, some aides to Mike Pence, were subpoenaed to testify to the January 6th grand jury. Same, very similar secret process that Trump lost. And the very next day after he lost that process, Mark Short came in and testified. And so, we've seen this movie before in a certain way, and maybe Evan Corcoran has a lot to say.
That's a fascinating theory, Laura, and I wonder what you make of it, that perhaps Evan Corcoran is a cooperative witness, and they got to get this material in the prosecutor's hands stat because he wants to come and testify.
We just don't know. There has also been some reporting out there that Beryl Howell actually ordered him to produce all these documents by, X date. And so the idea was the appellate court, in order to make sure that they got out ahead of that ruling, they ordered everything to be done so expeditiously so that they could have a full, sort of airing of their side of this before he was actually ordered to produce the stuff by Beryl Howell. But we just simply don't know, I wish we did. We're working on it. But I think we just don't yet know enough about what Corcoran's level of cooperation is here, if any.
Well, we do have a sense that he's pretty exposed, and we do have reporting that he is still working as a lawyer for Donald Trump, which, Laura, again, I am not a lawyer, but that seems pretty perilous, not only for Evan Corcoran, but also for Donald Trump, because if Evan Corcoran is a potential witness in this case,
he would no longer be able to defend him. I mean,
also, Trump could be accused of witness tampering, couldn't he? I mean, there's just so many levels to how this is legally perilous for all parties involved. Does it surprise you that Evan Corcoran is still involved in legal counsel to Donald Trump on this?
Nothing would surprise me about any of this anymore, given how all the legal machinations in this case go. But I think we have to wait and see how some of this plays out. And again, I think the big question is, how does Smith want to use this material?
Yeah.
Right? Because remember, the bar for getting at, just through a grand jury subpoena is lower than obviously the threshold he would have to make in court to actually prove these charges beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a different threshold. And so I'm curious to see how, if at all, Smith uses the materials that he fought so hard to get.
Yeah, and I will say, we just want to highlight, in addition to the statement that we talked about, it's also this phone call that Trump makes to Corcoran, allegedly, in and around the same time frame that the DOJ is subpoenaing to get their hands on the video footage that then reveals that, yes, indeed, people were moving boxes around Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
The contents of that call are going to be of great interest, well, to all of us, let's be honest, but especially to the Department of Justice as it tries to figure out what, as you point out, it's going to do in this Mar-a-Lago documents case.
Yeah.